Hello and welcome to the DARPA Launch Challenge. I'm Mike Curie and I'm very pleased to be your host for this broadcast today. I have been privileged to host many launches over time, some carrying astronauts to the International Space Station, others taking scientific payloads into far-off places into space. And every one of those launches was exciting, but it also took a lot of planning, long years of planning, and many resources to ensure that every risk was mitigated in order to maximize the probability of mission success. And that's all good, and that's still needed. However, DARPA had another idea. What if we came up with a different type of launch capability, one that's more responsive and flexible, one that can take an urgent payload and get it to space in the exact precise orbit that it needs to be, when it needs to be, from virtually anywhere. That is the genesis of the DARPA Launch Challenge. And that's why we're here today. This competition has been going on, and it's come down to one company that is here with a launch attempt this week in order to measure up to the rules of the competition. They were just told a couple of weeks ago where they were launching from, and even closer, a few days ago, exactly what payload it is that they are to launch to low Earth orbit. If they do it, they can earn $2 million. That company is Astra. Right now, the Astra 3.0 rocket, one of three, is at the Pacific Spaceport Complex in Alaska. It's on Kodiak Island, and it occupies more than 3,700 acres. It's a privately operated range in a sparsely populated area, and therefore it provides the perfect opportunity to support the Launch Challenge objectives to demonstrate the flexible and responsive launch. The DARPA Launch Challenge is using Pacific Spaceport Complex Alaska's Area 3. It's an open concrete slab. It's furnished with nothing but electricity, communications capability, and the slab itself. Astra was charged with packing everything up, bringing the rocket, bringing all the ground support equipment, containers for the fuel and oxygen, and bringing it all to Alaska. And they did so in 4 shipping containers. They are ready to go. There are operations underway in Alaska, as well as where I am. I'm located in the Astra headquarters building in Alameda, California. This is located in the Silicon Valley. It's a high-tech area where the folks from Astra are combining technology with rocket science. This is Astra's 250,000 square foot headquarters and rocket factory, all in one room. It's part of a 15-acre campus that began when Astra moved into a former Alameda Naval Air Station jet engine test facility. Here they can build, test, fire the rockets, make sure everything is working before they pack it and take it off to the launch site. And that's exactly what they did. They are ready for launch. There have been a few challenges beyond the normal expected challenge of the DARPA Launch Challenge. The latest was a blizzard in the Kodiak, Alaska area that was unexpected and has set things back a few days. But the resilient teams are working hard to accomplish erecting the rocket. It's currently located in at the Area 3 launch pad. It's in the horizontal position. They are going to go vertical with it onto its launch cube. And once they do that, they'll begin final testing in preparation for a wet dress rehearsal that is scheduled for tomorrow. If everything goes well with the wet dress rehearsal, then the hope is that Astra will be ready to launch by as early as Friday. We'll have to keep our eyes open, and we'll keep you posted on that. And while we're at it, let's talk about what is the Launch Challenge. Well, DARPA is seeking to accelerate capabilities that are unconstrained to allow for launches at launch pads that are not fixed, such as those that I was talking about before, where the shuttle launched and where other payloads have launched. This is a great opportunity for a company to show off technology that is really going to help the United States government. And to give us a better background, let's tune in right now to DARPA Program Manager Todd Master for an overview.
DARPA Launch Challenge is a prize-based challenge that we're using to incentivize industry to deliver flexible and responsive capabilities for space launch. So specifically, we're looking at a field of competitors who are developing commercial capabilities that can launch to space 2 times within a matter of weeks from a site that they weren't familiar with before they entered the challenge, with a payload that they didn't know what they were going to launch to, an orbit that they didn't know they were going to launch to. We were looking for 2 fundamental things. Did our competitors have a launch vehicle system and a ConOps that would get us to the goals that we were looking at? If there were a lot of requirements for what they needed from the launch facility, or really exotic fuels that would make it really hard to process, those sorts of things were negative detractors. We were looking for an approach that showed the system was capable of operating on short order, could work at any launch range without a whole lot of infrastructure, and the other part was maturity. We launch dozens of spacecraft a year, and each one of those is exquisitely planned. They're typically very expensive spacecraft that took many years in formulation. So as a result, we really want to make sure that they work. And a lot of what we want to do with the challenge is shift that philosophy away to a much more risk-accepting philosophy, more standard interfaces, where we're moving on a much faster cadence, and we're able to put things into space on a quick basis on the speed of warfighter need. That's a big shift that we're trying to make, trying to show that that's actually possible. Taking all the things that we usually do with pre-planning, turning that on its head, putting it on very short notice. So the reasons that it's something that we want to solve here at DARPA is that it fundamentally would change the way that we use space launch. When we look at space launch today, it's usually something that's pre-planned well in advance for very strategic use. And we want to see a shift to a much more tactical use of space capabilities. And really what that does is could transform the way that we use space into the way that we use other domains like air. We certainly don't plan our air operations years in advance. We don't plan our ground operations years in advance. We'd like to be able to plan space operations in the same way that we're able to use our other military domains. And the thing that's really compelling about that, especially from a military standpoint or a DoD standpoint, is that we can launch spacecraft when we want to launch them into the specific orbit that we want to launch them without being beholden to somebody else's schedule. And those things really offer us a lot of utility from a military perspective for the way that we might want to use space in the future.
Since 2004, DARPA has consistently used prize-based incentives in order to get folks to come up with innovative ideas. It's a unique concept. It's one that DARPA has had a great deal of success with. And in order to find out why they've done that, we want to turn to a resident expert on the subject. Jared Adams is the Chief of Communications for DARPA. Jared, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, Mike, thanks a lot for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Why the prize-based focus rather than the traditional government contract approach?
There are 2 reasons, really, why we have prize-based challenges. One is that it gives us multiple ideas. So whenever we put out, as an agency, a broad area announcement, which is essentially like a request for a proposal, sometimes those requests are tailored to a specific idea, and eventually we award those contracts to 1 or 2 different performers. In this case, at a challenge, you can attract several different performers. For instance, in the first 2004 challenge, we had initially 196 different participants.
Wow.
Yeah, so this challenge, we initially had a call, and we got 50 responses back. That went down to about 18, and then to 3, and now we're down to 1. And so we've seen an assortment of different ideas through through that challenge model that I think is really good, that wouldn't necessarily come through in a traditional contract.
And these are concepts that are going to benefit the government, or
yeah, they'll definitely
government.
benefit the government. And the other aspect of the challenge is really the economics of it, because if someone doesn't win the challenge, if the challenge isn't accomplished or the objective isn't met for the challenge, then the money isn't paid out. So what we found over the course of the last 16 years of hosting these challenges, and this is our 20th, is that very often the amount of time and development that the performers will invest in the program is actually, will far outstrip what we would have spent, on a regular program, or what we would award for the prize value.
And for the DARPA Launch Challenge, the money that is out there for Astra is $2 million for a successful launch to low Earth orbit within the time frame that they're allocated. Mm-hmm. And then, if they do achieve low Earth orbit and are successfully launch a second time and insert a satellite payload into low Earth orbit at another location, then they'll win an additional $10 million. So there's a chance here for $12 million in prize award, and we're really hoping that they do well. But it's that first launch that they have to get past, that everybody has their eyes on. Well, we're all pulling for them.
Yeah.
And it's a great concept. The DARPA Launch Challenge is a great idea.
Thanks. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Jared. So we are awaiting more details on how things are going out at the launch pad in Alaska. Again, Astra is reacting and responding very well to the blizzard that overtook their preparations. They had the rocket erected on the launch pad, and they were beginning checkouts, and they were preparing for the wet dress rehearsal and a launch earlier in the week when Mother Nature came calling, and a very strong blizzard came through and shut down operations for about 24 hours. So now the teams are working again to prepare the rocket, get it into position so that they can perform the wet dress rehearsal tomorrow. And the wet dress rehearsal is a full opportunity to fuel the vehicle. The rocket will be fueled, and as well as the liquid oxygen put in. And it's also an opportunity for the launch team to practice their countdown operations and preparation. So it's a full-up dress rehearsal tomorrow. We won't be privy to it until afterward, but afterward we will be with you, and we'll be able to tell you how everything went. And if everything goes well, and they're able to turn the pad around and successfully accomplish everything that would need to be done in a somewhat compressed schedule between the end of the wet dress rehearsal and a planned launch, it is possible that they will launch on Friday. And when we leave you today, that is the time that you will see counting down on the clock. It's counting down to a launch opportunity on Friday at 11:30 Alaska time, 12:30 Pacific time. So we'll keep our fingers crossed that everything goes well. And when we join you again tomorrow, we'll have more information on that, as well as more information on why is this challenge so difficult. There are lots of challenges, weather being one of them, and we'll give you the full rundown tomorrow when we join you. So once again, thank you for being with us today. We'll see you tomorrow. We'll be here at the same time, 2 o'clock Alaska time, 3 o'clock Pacific time. Thank you very much.